Hello and welcome to Defense Against the Dark Charts. My name is Dustin Cabral. I am Data Visualization and Analytics Lead at ClearTelligence Inc. We are a New England-based data visualization and analytics company with arms also in the New York tri-state area and the Mid-Atlantic region. As evidenced by this picture, I am the cool dad, a data viz guy. By my data robot t-shirt, you can tell that. Former powerlifter, may not be able to tell that piece. A Tesla fan, and also an old millennial, as you can see from my two kids. Today, what we would like to go through is Defense Against the Dark Charts. What we're going to cover is both theory and practice of defending your work. In essence, what the main point of this presentation is to arm you to better deal with your daily work with the business and IT, how they interpret your work, and how you can better position yourself to have your work be accepted by the broader business community. Defense Against the Dark Charts is rooted in design and psychology. Most of our content from ClearTelligence is related to either design or technical kind of prowess, but Defense Against the Dark Charts is, at least 50 to 60% psychology based. And a lot of that is that you are always working to convey that your work will better represent data, will more accurately represent data, and will tell a clearer picture to your audience. So not a lot of that can be explained with just technical definitions or reasons why in practice why your work is better. A lot of the time you're convincing people who have little to no background in data visualization that they should do something. And what we hope to do is arm you with reasons why they should be kind of taking your advice and implementing the recommendations that you choose. So once you've gone through Defense Against the Dark Charts, we hope that you are better equipped to be able to deal with the rigors of presenting and successfully implementing your data visualization work. The first section here is going to be centered around enemies of good design. Now, there's really no greater enemy than yourself. So no one's a better critic than you. You can talk yourself out of a good idea at any time, not only at work, but in your daily life as well. And this can be for many reasons. So it could be that you're tired of the same design that you've done over and over again at work. It could be that you're bored with what you've done. You have some sense of, a need for novelty and an urge to change what you've done just for the sake of change. Maybe you've been online and you've been looking at Makeover Mondays and all the Zen Masters on Twitter, and you really want to implement a radial chart, at your work just because you've seen it. It may not be best practice, but you're trying to get out of your own head and you're trying to do something different and innovative, but it may end up leading to potentially worse design or worse interpretation of your work. You may also have some hesitance towards trying something new. Maybe something's better, but you've done it a certain way for a certain amount of time and you're used to it and you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to change what you've done because what you've done has worked. Which leads to the next point, which is fear of rework. Maybe you actually do want to implement the change and you're going to do it. You may be afraid that what you do doesn't get accepted and then you have to go back and you have to change it again. You have to change it back. You have, embarrassment because you tried something and it failed. So fear of failure is definitely a huge piece of this and can be a very big enemy of good design. In addition to that, imposter syndrome can kind of creep in. So this is really where you may be a legitimately talented developer and well respected in your field and all of that, and you may not feel like it. You may feel like an imposter, somebody who, who are you to be an expert at data visualization? Who are you to, recommend things for the executives in your company? So imposter syndrome is another big piece of why you yourself are the number one enemy of good design most of the time. Another key enemy of good design, and as you can tell from this point, from the title and the pictures and all of that, this presentation is going to be largely Harry Potter themed. So I apologize in advance for those of you listening and watching to this that are not Harry Potter fans. Hopefully you still get a good chunk of information out of this and can take the insights and go implement them without knowing the full extent of the references. It may just be a more entertaining and funnier presentation if you do watch some of the movies or read some of the books before doing this, but not required. So back to Dementors. These individuals, like in the movies and books, can suck the life out of, the best of us. So they may come into a meeting and you may be presenting your final dashboard and, you're excited to convey what you've done, and they might say, even before you're done, let's just keep what works, what exists. Let's not change it if we don't need to. I don't think these, new fancy charts are going to help anybody. Or they might say, this is confusing or not familiar. Our users aren't going to understand this. One of the worst things to hear is just input from someone who's at a very high level who may not be the end consumer of the dashboard, saying what those people will or will not like. It's key to get insight and feedback from the actual voice of the customer, not just those signing off on the final design, to make sure that your work is engaging, but also to validate that it will be accepted. These people may also say, I need to see the numbers, and they'll end up pushing crosstab heavy design or, something that they can just export from the tool. So it can be very, very tough dealing with these types of enemies of good design, for sure. The third, and probably my favorite, are the Gilderoy Lockharts. Now, for those of you not familiar with Harry Potter, Gilderoy was a very bad wizard, not bad as in evil, but bad as in just couldn't do much magic. But he was, very confident that he was the best, and he was very self-absorbed and kind of always thought he was right. So these, in the context of data visualization and dashboards, are people who consider themselves experts, who think they know what's best. They actively criticize your work in a non-constructive way. They might provide unprompted visual aids. Maybe they drew something and brought it into the meeting. Maybe they put something in PowerPoint or copy and pasted things from Pinterest and, Google Images to show you. They'll disrupt the flow of design sessions, and they'll try and inject influence wherever they can. So it's a little harder to combat Gilderoy Lockharts of the world because they can seem, good intention. They can seem like they want to help and that they know what they're doing, and they can help make this better. And that can be difficult to combat because they could be very positive, and you may have trouble kind of directing them towards the right way, especially if they believe themselves to be experts. So Nifflers, this is from one of the newer in the Harry Potter franchise's movies, but these little guys, if you're not familiar with them, are hoarders of everything shiny. So in the case of dashboards, this is really just as I said, they are hoarders. They want everything. They want every field as a filter at the top of the dashboard. They want sheets that can change in and out using parameters. They want to add chart after chart after chart to the dashboard page, and make it 3,000 pixels long and answer all of the questions. They want an export tab at the end so they can get at the raw data. So the main issue with Nifflers is they don't really know what they want. They don't know what's going to answer the question. Maybe the questions that they're asking aren't the right ones, and so they just ask for everything. They may be very enthusiastic about Tableau and about the solution, but they may be going about it the completely wrong way and just requesting everything all at once. So we've gone over some high-level enemies of design, some people you may run into, you definitely will run into in your data visualization career, and kind of knowing who they are is one piece of this, just to recognize what type of enemy of good design they are. But really what we want to do is give you both some psychological kind of tools to work through these problems with the enemies of design, and also some hard tools to use along with Tableau to help you. So the first thing we want to go through are the rules of persuasion. So it's pretty rare that, in our world of data visualization, that something that you design now will go through to production without anyone questioning it, anyone commenting on it, any review, any changes, right? So as a result of this, you're going to end up discussing and oftentimes disagreeing with what should be pushed out, with what should be kept inside your dashboard. One way you can try and combat this in a productive manner is to use rules of persuasion. Now we're going to go through the kind of 8 key rules here. There are more than that, but these are a good set to get started with. Different techniques that you can use to make your argument more effective. Now these also may or may not work in other situations and other relationship arguments or anything like that, but try them out at work first before you do that at home, so I don't want to be responsible for any fights. So rules of persuasion number 1: face-to-face is best. So this is a pretty tried and true statement for really any conversation. If you want it to have the biggest impact, viewing somebody face to face really is best. There's been a myriad of studies that have, concluded that conflict resolution is, best resolved face to face. A lot of this is because, there's nonverbal cues, there's expressions on your face, there's nuances to how your voice is being projected or how you look at an individual that can influence how it's perceived. And you are relatively familiar with this, even if you haven't done this in a work setting, or if you haven't recognized it just from, let's say, talking to a significant other. Is it better to talk to them about something important in person? Would it be taken in the same way if you just called them on the phone, or if you sent them a text, or if you sent them an email? How often is the tone of something lost in text, right? So it may be easier to write an email or send an instant message, or, do something quick and, non-invasive for you, but that can lead to, misinterpretation, more communication than's needed, and backtracking and different things like that, that may help you, lose your argument just because of the medium that you use to convey it. So when in doubt, follow kind of the below bullets, with the top being the best and the bottom being the minimal acceptable option. In person, then video calls, then phone and screen share, then instant messaging, then email. So following these at work can really help. If it's something of great importance, definitely go to the top of the list. If it's nothing big and you're just agreeing with somebody, maybe an email or an instant message is okay, but just gauge it based on, the priority of the conversation and the weight of what it really is that you're discussing. So number 2 is wait for the right time. So you might get criticism of your work. You might get responses from people that honestly you don't like. The one thing you should really take out of this piece is just to wait. Just don't rush your response to criticism. Nothing good can come of it. You may end up responding through the wrong medium. You may be responding during a stressful time in your personal life. All of those things can contribute to you having a productive conversation or you having a bad conversation. So, number one, take a breath. Number two, think about when you're able to either meet in person or have a video call with that person, or whatever level that you think dictates the response that you're going to send, and plan that out. Set up that meeting and think about what you're going to discuss before you set it up. And once you get in the meeting, you'll be prepared, you'll be cool, you'll be calm. You won't have that initial sting of, they didn't like what I made. They don't get what I'm trying to say. And then you can work through how you're going to argue those points during that actual meeting. Number three is focus on what is important. So it can be really tempting to respond to any and all criticisms. And, take it from me, you may end up getting way more criticism and comments and notes than you ever thought you would on a dashboard. Maybe you have, 100-page list of changes that you need to make to a dashboard. Some of them more important than others, right? Concentrate on the key points of what you're trying to convey. Everything else is really a distraction. Go back to your mission statement of the project or dashboard and determine what was the point of the dashboard in the first place. What questions is it trying to answer? Are any of those criticisms or comments or feedback affecting that fundamental mission? If yes, then those are the things you should really defend vigorously and using some of these rules of persuasion. Everything else, put in a priority list and defend it as needed, but don't defend everything. If somebody wants a font change or something tiny, you don't have to die on that hill. You don't have to say, oh, well, Century Gothic is the only acceptable font, and, we can't deviate from that, and da-da-da-da-da. Is it really worth your time and effort to defend that, or should you be defending the true purpose of your dashboard and anything that will take away from that? So definitely, as in anything else, pick your battles, focus on what's important and key to your dashboard, and you should come out okay. Number four, listen first. And this has, been touted on many a LinkedIn post where, someone may say the 10 rules that successful CEOs use, and, one of them is listen first. And it is true, listening first is very important. And not just in the superficial LinkedIn post way, but listening first allows for a few different things. First, allows you to collect all the information from all the individuals giving input before you answer. There could be something that someone follows up on that, they end up taking that fight for you. They say that what the other person said wasn't a good idea, and you don't have to fight that battle. They may add some more color to a conversation. They may completely divert, what people have said into something completely separate, where you're building a completely different dashboard and the entire scope changes. So really wait and listen to what everyone says so that you are more informed. The other piece of this is that you're allowing a concession. People love concessions in arguments and negotiation. So you're allowing everyone to feel like they've been heard. And you are in turn given more time to stay calm, think about a thoughtful response to what people are saying. You can write things down, but you have the advantage if you let everyone else speak first. And, to be honest, if you're the one that has created the dashboard and you're presenting it, you are supposed to be listening to those people, and it's not abnormal for you not to say anything right away until the very end, until everyone has given their input. It won't be seen as kind of odd that you're not saying anything. You can just listen attentively, take notes, and follow up at the end of the conversation with what your thoughts are and what you think next steps should be. So number 5 is anticipate objections. So if you've been a developer for any period of time over, a few weeks, you will encounter the same questions and comments and criticisms over and over and over again. If it's color or design scheme or font or a chart type or anything like that, someone insisting on using pie charts, someone insisting on using a specific color scheme, anything like that you've seen and heard before, make sure that you have responses for those specific items. If they happen all the time, you should be ready and anticipate them. Now, there's some things that you won't be able to anticipate, which is perfectly fine. That's when you use the other methods of listen first and things like that to be able to think through and have a thoughtful response. But for those things that are kind of tried and true and you hear all the time, have something ready at your defense. Have some, reference material, have some things that you're quoting from, have some reasons behind why you did what you did, and that you understand and you anticipated those questions coming up, and people will feel validated that you thought about it, you have a thoughtful response to it. But it can really help kind of grease the wheels of conversation if you have those things ahead of time and you're ready and prepared with them during the conversation. So number 6 is very important. Avoid attacking. Now this can be tough, especially depending on who is leveraging the criticisms against you. They may not be doing it in a nice way. It may feel personal, right? It's definitely going to feel personal no matter how they say it because it's your work and they're changing it. But sometimes it can be worse than others. And you can get into a kind of defensive mode where you're just, being aggressive back. And you shouldn't do that. It's not productive. And you're lowering the odds that you are going to reach a consensus by the end of that meeting, or at least that you have constructive next steps. Don't let things be taken personally. This comes with sort of experience. You may find things personal to start, and then eventually kind of just rolls off your back, and you say, okay, I've planned for this. These are my contingencies. This is why I'm doing this. Da, 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 da. And eventually you'll get into kind of a groove where you can roll with the punches a little bit. You can tell people you're going to regroup, and you can come back with, the right answers, hopefully, or at least they're interpreted as the right answers for the business. So number 7 may seem counterintuitive. The whole point of being persuasive and arguing or negotiating with somebody is that you don't want to make concessions. You want to win. Just because you lose a battle doesn't mean you will lose the war. And this is similar to knowing what is important. Your lower priority items, things that aren't key to your message or design, those you can really make concessions on. So that stuff we talked about with font or color, certain things that aren't key to conveying your messages, you're going to have to end up conceding on them. And if you give small things up willingly and fight for the things that are important, people will be happy. They'll be happy that they made a change to what you've created, and it's more in line with what they were expecting. You don't care that much because it's viewed as trivial, or you can at least rationalize it that way to yourself that these items that I've changed are not as important as the main points of my dashboard, and anything that's quick, just go ahead and do it. Don't make a big deal about it. You could even change things during the meeting to give people a preview of what they're saying. They want to try a quick chart, fine. They want to change the font of the entire dashboard, you can do that really quickly. So those things are small little things that can be a delighter to people. They can let them see them right away, and it may even backfire on them. They may say they wanted that change, you show it to them quick, and they change their mind. So making those small concessions can really help. It can really show that you have kind of good faith in the process. Number 8. This is probably one of the most important pieces of the rules of persuasion, but it actually has to deal with less with you actually persuading somebody and more about the preparation for dealing with the end users, the business users. So this one, and from experience. My wife was actually the person who taught me Tableau originally, so I use her as my neutral party whenever I can, when it's not work related or anything like that, and I can bounce ideas off of her. And I know that she'll give me sort of an honest answer back. Um, she won't sugarcoat it for me. She's not going to be mean, but she'll tell me if something looks funny or if she doesn't think that it'll fly or something like that. You want to find somebody who will give you an honest answer back. You don't want to find somebody who's just a yes person and they're going to just say, "Oh yeah, it's fantastic, I love it," and then you walk into the meeting and you get hit from the side, not even anticipating what people are going to say. So the more people you can test ideas out with before meeting with those end users, the better, and the more prepared you'll be. You may even get some initial criticisms that you can prep for when you go into the actual meeting, even if you're not going to change them after meeting with the neutral party. At least you know of them before your true meeting with the business. All right. So next we're going to talk about defending your design through science. Now, some of the things we're going to talk about are things you've been familiar with your whole life, but you may not have been able to put a word to them. Some of them are studies that have been performed from data visualization peers and throughout history. And some of them are just some tips and tricks that, as consultants, we find helpful. So hopefully these, paired with, the psychology of defending your design, can help you a lot. The first piece of this is probably the most important, especially for defending which charts you use. Now, two researchers, Cleveland and McGill, published Graphical Perception and Graphical Methods for Analyzing Data way back in 1985. It's actually older than me, so even for being an old millennial, this is an old study. Essentially, what they did was they gave some tests to different users, and they had them read different types of charts, and they recorded what the users found and what the error rates were for each of the visualizations that they were interpreting. This is how this diagram on the right-hand side was developed, and this can be directly correlated to different types of visualizations. So if you look at angle, for example, that has about a 11%, 12% error rate. That closely lines up with pie charts. Pie charts use angles to tell different slices. So when people say that pie charts are bad, they're kind of right. Not in absolute terms. I wouldn't say that you should never use pie charts, but people do have a hard time telling differences in angles. If pie slices are pretty close and they don't have a label, it's very hard for people to tell the difference between those things, and that's why some people say that pie charts are bad. Other options on this view, position way at the top, that has an extremely low error rate. That's related to scatter plots and bar charts. So when you think about those, people are very good at telling position from one to another. You probably haven't had a hard time reading a scatter plot before, and that's because humans are very good at telling the difference between positions. So if you need some science to back up why or why not different visualizations can be used, you can reference the Cleveland and McGill study, and I would recommend actually reading through it, at least a summary of it, so you can kind of know the background of it. But you can tell people the reasons why pie charts might not be so good. You can defend visualizations that you've chosen. So you can go either way. You're either defending or you're against something that somebody has chosen. But using studies like these can really help that conversation along and give some weight behind what you're saying. Color harmony, this one is one that you may be familiar with from your childhood, right? So everybody's had a color wheel from art class. Everybody knows that certain colors go together, but they may not know why. There's a few different types of color harmonies. There's complementary, split complementary triads, lots of different types of colors that go together. Um, and these are visually pleasing to most people. Now, you may get many business people who want certain colors because it's corporate colors, because they like those colors, because they think, those colors represent what they're showing, and you may have a different take on it. To defend the colors that you've chosen, you can call upon the color harmonies as a reason why you chose them, that they're, based in reality, based in color theory, and they are proven to work better together and be pleasing to people who are, looking at them. In addition to that, you can leverage palette generators like Paleton if a particular user is set on a color and you need to include it, but you need better colors to go along with it. Then you can leverage a palette generator to input that primary color, and you can get complementary colors right out of it. So either way, you can help defend the colors that you're using. If not, you can take the colors that they're choosing and try and make the best of them. Oftentimes, you don't have complete control over the colors being chosen, but if you'd like to, try and defend what you're doing and what you're showing, color harmony is a tried and true method. So color blindness. This one is very interesting. So color blindness impacts 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women. It's something that many people don't think about on a regular basis, but can have a big impact in how people consume your dashboards. The most common instance of where this may be, an issue, is really around the red and green palette. A lot of finance organizations, and really most organizations, use red for bad and green for good. The problem with this is that the most common type of color blindness is red-green colorblind, which basically means that people see red and green as basically the same brownish orange type color. So if they're looking at your dashboard, they're not getting any information out of the colors that you're shown. They actually all look the same if you're using that red and green palette. So if you need to defend against those colors, using Color Oracle can really help. Color Oracle is a free open source tool. Just go to colororacle.org and download it. It can simulate color blindness on your computer. So you can pull up your dashboard, you can put in the colors that people are recommending, and you can actually simulate color blindness right on your computer without, someone having to be colorblind to be able to see it. So this can be a really, really helpful thing. Color Oracle can be used anytime for free. You could, use alternative palettes. Tableau has colorblind palettes built into it. And you could also reference these just basic statistics as well. Hopefully one of those 3 options can help you kind of defer any issues you may be having with colorblind, unfriendly palettes, but there are a bunch of options there. So perceptual pop-out. So really what we're talking about here is pre-attentive processing of visual information. So what that means is, back in the day when we were cave people and running around and trying to hunt in fields, we needed something in our bodies to let us know when there was danger around. And one of those things was pre-attentive processing, basically us seeing things without even thinking about it. Now, we're much more advanced, or at least we think, than we were back then. And we don't have the danger of the lions and, the plains or anything like that anymore. But we still have pre-attentive processing. We still focus on things that are bright, that draw our attention. That's why ads are colored like that. That's why, book titles on cover pages are designed like the way they are. So when you're designing dashboards, pre-attentive processing is there for us to leverage as an advantage. So, for example, if I were to ask you, how many B's or D's are on this page, it would take you a while to find them in those circles on the right-hand side. But if I changed it to highlight the B's, you could pick that number out in a millisecond. You wouldn't even need to think about how many were there. You could tell exactly where they are. So part of the way that you can use pre-attentive processing is to draw people to outliers to show them important information at a quick glance. But where you can run into trouble is where people want too many bright colors all over the dashboard, and the pre-attentive processing just isn't working anymore because everything looks the same. So using bright colors sparingly is important for understanding your visualizations, and leveraging pre-attentive processing can be a big part of that. Using the science of pre-attentive processing, you can defend why you shouldn't have so many bright colors on your dashboard, why things should be designed in a certain way in respect to color. So this one is more related to photographers most often, but the rule of thirds is an interesting way of looking at dashboards as well. So in photography, the rule of thirds basically says to split your picture into 9 pieces using 4 lines, shown here on a dashboard, but you can imagine a photograph being here as well. And essentially what this says is that people find interest in the items that go along the lines and at the intersections of the lines if you're using this cross section. So to follow along with that theory and determine a placement of different items on your dashboard, you may want to use the rule of thirds. Now, if people want to move around the different pieces of your dashboard and it may not look pleasing to the eye, you may have issue with it, you can use rule of thirds in your defense and say that, using the rule of thirds is a methodology that has been used for centuries to create things that are visually pleasing and engaging for end users. And you want to make sure that you're following, at least to some degree, this rule so that people can, look at your dashboard and find it intuitive and pleasing to the eye. Now, this one piece is it's not exactly a methodology for defending yourself, but it's something that you should be aware of. So anticipatory design was thought of in the 1980s, and really what it tells you is that whatever you're creating or whatever users are using are split into kind of 3 different buckets. Basic needs. These are basic functionality for whatever you're making. In your dashboard, this would be, people can log into a dashboard, it renders, they have some filters to interact with, and they can get information out of it, right? Basic functionality. Satisfiers are, nice to have, a step up from basic needs. So essentially, maybe something that's a more intuitive filter, has relevant values, or, the ability to view multiple sheets in the same dashboard and have a parameter flip them out. Maybe that's something that's a satisfier, right? It's not something that is base functionality, but it's a nice to have, right? And then there's delighters. So these can range from sort of unexpected functionality to visual improvements to, functionality that exceeds Tableau, integration with portals, something that really was unexpected. So delighters are nice to haves that people really weren't expecting, and they're very pleased with those. Now, the thing is that any delighter that you have and any satisfier that you have will eventually transition to a basic need. If you think about phones and how those have changed over time, your cell phone used to be a flip phone or something with a little keypad, and now your phone is a basically a slab of glass that's a computer. And back when the iPhone came out in 2007, that was definitely a delighter. It was something that nobody had thought of and didn't think you could have on your phone, and it was revolutionary. And now today, every phone is like that. It's a basic need that you have a phone that's touchscreen, that's as powerful as a computer, can go on the internet, and you can video chat with somebody. So it's no longer a delighter, and anything that you create with your dashboard will eventually transition to a basic need. So you should be really classifying the different pieces and different ads and different comments that you get about your dashboard into these 3 buckets so you can really understand, is this enhancement or change a delighter? Is it a satisfier? Is it a basic need? Because if you've created something that's very hard to do and it's a delighter, eventually the end users are going to expect it for everything. So if that's something you really can't easily replicate, you either need to communicate that up front or you need to not include it, because it will transition to all of your other dashboards eventually. So just be careful with that, something to be aware of. So this piece is one that's near and dear to my heart. I use these all the time. They are called background templates. Now, they are not templates in the aspect of all of your charts and visualizations will be planned out and placed on a dashboard for you, and you just need to plug in the data and it's all done. That's not possible and probably not feasible with any tool because everything is unique and custom in some way, shape, or form. But background templates are really designed to help you expedite your analytics. And what these really are just custom images that are layered behind your dashboard. And it may sound simple, but having a structure, a skeleton for your dashboard before you even begin placing your visualizations on is huge. And it's often where people get stuck. They don't know where to start. Using a template will give you, 40%, 50%, 60% of the design of your dashboard up front. And then you can fill in the blanks essentially. So what you need to do to create a template is relatively simple. You open PowerPoint, and you can use other tools. PowerPoint's pretty ubiquitous, so that's why we mention it. Open PowerPoint, bring in your custom images, your icons, your logos, things like that. Put in your headers and your titles. Put in any boxes you need to put your KPIs in. All of that stuff that's flat and doesn't move on a dashboard, put that all in. PowerPoint slides are usually measured in inches. 1 inch in PowerPoint is 100 pixels in Tableau. So you can make your dashboard template in PowerPoint, save it as an image. I usually save this as a PNG. You can just go to Save As, PNG. You take that image, you bring it into your dashboard floating, you put it at 0, 0, and then the other 2 coordinates to get you over there. So if it's 14 inches by 14 inches, it would be 1400 by 1400 in Tableau. And there you go. You can just drag in your sheets floating over that background template and leverage that. This can help with cohesion between different groups. It can help with consistency between dashboard suites. It can help speed the market of, a lot of your content by leveraging dashboards. So it's dashboard templates. So it's a huge thing, and it's relatively simple to start. And once you have it, you'll never look back. So the last piece for today, let's just look at a defensive map for our enemies of good design. So we've got our, technical defenses on the left-hand side for good design, and then we've got our enemies of good design on the right. We're just going to do a quick mapping of them. So if we look at yourself, there are a few ways you can combat yourself being an enemy of good design. Those include using anticipatory design, predicting what you will shoot down about yourself, using background templates to give you an edge to change things without changing them to be worse, right? You can bank on those background templates and change them as needed and help yourself be inspired and view the value of what you've created, but not outright change everything just for the sake of changing things. For the Dementors, those are the ones that really sucking the life out of your work. They're shooting it down very quickly. Oftentimes using things like perceptual pop-out, background templates can really help kind of drive them away from nitpicking things. It can give them something important to look at. You can talk about, the key aspects of why you're leveraging those things and how you're doing it and how it will help both business process consistency across the organization. For the Gildor Lockharts, really you can throw everything at these people. you're going to need to leverage color harmony to combat their advice on colors. You're going to need to show them Color Oracle to defend red-green colorblind. You're going to need to show them color perceptual pop-out, so to make sure they're not using bright colors all over the dashboard. And you're probably going to have to show them background templates as well to get them in line. Nifflers, oftentimes you're going to end up quoting some more scientific studies for these guys. So the human visual error is a good one. That one will help defend, the grab bag of charts that they're going to throw at you. They want everything ever, including pie charts and Sankey's and all the other things. But explaining to them the science behind error of perception can really help. And then using the rule of thirds. This one's really more about, we can't have this many things on this dashboard. People are going to get confused. They're not going to be able to, understand the information being conveyed, and we need to make it so it's interactive and pleasing to them. So hopefully what we've gone through today will help you, be both a better designer, but hopefully able to better defend your design, because you could design the best dashboard in the world, but if you can't defend it and have it supported and have it launch, right, what's the point of that great design? If it's never used, it's really unfortunate because you've worked really hard on it. It could be super intuitive and help your business out, but if it's never going to be used, then it's not really of much use. So that's really what the heart of this presentation is really just helping you defend what you've created and get as much of what you can of what you made out into production, out in the field, being used by real people on an everyday basis.